Talking Auburn football, and in the Deep South, college football is king. And on the plains of Auburn, the battle cry is War Eagle. Once again, it's K-Stu the GOAT for Vernon Speak Sports, and we're talking Auburn football like nobody's business here in the early part of June. We are 2 days in and capping off a recent Big Cat weekend, an annual recruiting retreat, if you will, for the Auburn Tigers. Some of the best talent across the country comes to Auburn to get a closer look at the program. As a matter of fact, they get a more intimate conversation style with the coaches, get a chance to see kind of what Auburn has to offer outside of what you may see on the internet or YouTube, things of that nature. They get to experience the Auburn experience firsthand, get to talk to the coaches, get to talk to current players, and get a feel for where the program is headed. Now, normally the goal, obviously, for Auburn when it comes to Big Cat weekend is to give players that they otherwise would not have had exposure to the opportunity, of course, to see Auburn's program dead on, especially with having other guys across the country that they can rub shoulders with and form great relationships with. As usual, this was a pretty successful event for the Auburn Tigers. If you look at the recruiting process, Auburn obviously needing some offensive linemen, were able to gain a commitment over the weekend with Javion Cohen out of Phoenix City, Alabama. Phoenix City has had a knack for producing some of the best talent here in the last few years. Auburn able to gain that commitment just before Big Cat weekend. Now, some other guys who aren't necessarily committed to Auburn for sure, you know, you talk about these guys already are committed to Auburn's biggest rivals, one Georgia, one Alabama, but were oddly enough impressed by their visits to Auburn over the past weekend. We talk about Roydell Williams, who is a very, very highly touted running back, four-star recruit who has committed to the University of Alabama, says that, you know, Auburn is now his number 2 school. That doesn't necessarily mean by any stretch of the imagination that he even has plans to flip from Alabama to Auburn. But what that does say is the effect of an event like Big Cat weekend. You know, Auburn, it gives Auburn a chance to leave an impression on high-end players and really get to know these guys and form a relationship with guys to possibly, let's just say some things happen down the road, to possibly to where they will remember Auburn in their recruiting process. Roydell Williams is a solid commit to Alabama. He's a very, very talented running back. And when you look at Auburn, though, there is a slight possibility that Auburn could be in consideration. If you think about the fact that Carnell Williams, former first-round draft pick and player at Auburn University, is now the running backs coach. What will be interesting is to see how the progression is made, say, from Auburn's running backs last year to this year. See what kind of impact Carnell has on a coaching standpoint, and that will start to translate over to Carnell Williams as a recruiter. Historically, Auburn has been very successful at producing players at the next level. You talk about currently Kerryon Johnson, of course, Carnell Williams from back in the day, Ronnie Brown as well. So Auburn has had a very decent amount of success with the running back position as it translates over to the NFL. You talk about Trey Mason, who was well on his way to becoming a great running back, had some issues, but now currently playing in the Canadian Football League. Of course, Cameron Artis-Payne, who is now with the Carolina Panthers. Just a very, very easy sell for the Auburn Tigers. Talking about a flip from Alabama. Now, don't get me wrong. I don't think it will be an easy flip if the flip was to occur. But however, Auburn definitely has some selling points as it relates to the running back position. It's best wishes for the Auburn Tigers as, you know, you get on the recruiting trail and things get more and more hectic as you get closer to signing day. Also, you look at the arch rival Georgia, who has had an excellent run recruiting wise this particular year. you have a defensive lineman in Nazir Jones who has actually been committed to Georgia since the SEC championship game back in 2017. Now, Nazir Stackhouse, who has been committed to Georgia since 2017. Here's the deal. This guy's one of the better defensive line recruits coming out of the state of Georgia. He's actually from Decatur, Georgia, Columbia High School. And, you know, he says that he won't sign with the school during the early signing period. And he actually has no plans to be an early enrollee at whichever school he chooses. And he will actually walk with his class at Columbia. He's rated as the number 230 overall prospect in the 2020 class. Strangely enough, it turns out that Nazir Stackhouse has actually been hanging out a little bit more at Auburn as far as visits go, more than he has done so with the University of Georgia. And you talk about a possible flip between Georgia and Auburn, a pretty nice sell as well for Auburn. If you look at defensive linemen over the past few years for the Auburn Tigers, you talk about Carl Lawson, you talk about D Ford, you talk about Jeff Holland, Derek Brown this year, I'm pretty sure will be at worst a middle first round pick. So Auburn can show the ability to put defensive linemen in the National Football League. Of course, that can happen at Georgia as well, but Auburn actually has just as much of a sell as Georgia would, and he seems to be very, very interested to a certain degree in Auburn because he keeps visiting the Auburn Tigers. Now, we're going to see how this thing turns out. It is a long time, guys, before signing day, and of course, this guy, Nazir Stackhouse, ain't in no rush. He says he's not signing until probably signing day. So he's going to stretch this recruitment all the way out to the end. Let me know, guys, what you guys think about Big Cat Weekend, its effect on the Auburn Tigers recruiting, and just recruiting in the SEC in general. Leave it in the comment section. Go ahead and like this video, subscribe to Vernon Speaks Auburn, and make sure you comment in the comment section, War Eagle.